Hey, Damon, I appreciate you coming on, and I want to have you back up again because this is intriguing. But this is the slick New World Order sales job because I recognize what you're doing. I've heard this from other high-powered people.
Making a sale? No,
Hold on, but I've been given this speech before. Hold on. I've been given this speech before. What I'm telling you is the fruits of the people captaining our planet right now are, look, the Rockefellers set up eugenics. The Rockefellers set up CPSing people's children and the family courts. They set up the Human Genome Project in Cold Springs Harbor. I understand they also set up some of the national parks because they wanted places where there were no people.
That's good. That's good. Well, you know, what do we do? Our nation, the United States, enjoys a very high standard of living. Many of us sit around on lazy boy chairs. We fill our faces with macaroni and cheese, and in the evening we watch the Newlywed Game and ridiculous programming. We medicate ourselves, right? And we do this with debt that we foist onto our own Ponzi scheme.
Yes, we're an obese, decadent society that won't even engage in birth control, so we just abort our babies. We're a throwaway society, and so now we're being thrown away by the global system.
How fair is that we in the United States live that way, and then you've got people in India, in Bangladesh, in Vietnam that are living in making 67 cents an hour, with members of their family starving to death while we live this way. Is that compassionate?
Well, I'll tell you this. A lot of them are doing, hold on, a lot of them are doing better now than they were just 20 years ago.
I'll grant you that.
Because of the limited, but that's the globalist sales pitch, is guilt to what's left of the middle class here, when really...
Forget about the guilt.
But then our money, what's left of us, gets transferred to the bankers. It doesn't get to some African.
No desire to do that. We've got a rising unemployment rate, and the reason why we have a rising unemployment rate is we simply cannot match the unit cost, the labor cost, the unit cost of production that can be achieved in Vietnam and Crete.
But how does lowering our standard of living, when it's all fiat to begin with, how does that help Africa and Asia and Latin America? That's actually going to hurt them because they're not even going to have their customer anymore. This is how globalization and the giant sucking sound, the race to the bottom, destroys all sides in the end except for the finance oligarchs.
Well, if we don't try to create some type of a balance globally, Alex, we will be racing.
All right, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then, because you are an honest guy who'll talk about the truth on national television. What do we do then? If Damon Vickers was steering things, what would you do?
Well, I think we have to create a global environment whereby whereby we have balance, and that's essentially the problem. I think on a planetary basis, we're living out of balance. Our own country is out of balance. We cannot go and take 1 million tons of herring out of the ocean and know that it doesn't affect the whales and all that.
The oceans are really running out of fish right now. But the issue here is, again, I want to go back to this.
The issue is realizing that heaven is a place that is something that the closest, our fondest imaginings of what heaven is here on our planet. We need to take care of the planet that we live in, and not be raping it and think it's ours to exploit. We have to sustain our home, and we're not treating it respectfully.
Well, I'll tell you this: putting a tax on carbon isn't going to do that
respectfully either in the planet.
But Damon, putting a tax on carbon dioxide is a giant distraction from real environmental policies that we could agree to carry out and make profitable. I mean,
I agree. I mean, the government that we have in place right now is a total disaster. This whole move towards health care is just insane. It's just our government has become a giant tumor, a malignant tumor that is sucking the life out of this country. It's horrific.
Yeah.
These are not easy. These are not.
But
easy,
Damon, that's my point. Is the same globalists that brought us into imbalance certainly nudged us in that way, using our own weaknesses to get us dependent on them. They got us dependent in this largesse, decadent, laissez-faire welfare system so that we could be controlled. I have their own documents. They brag that they engineered this, and then now they're offering the solution that sounds somewhat similar to what you're saying. I'm saying the problem is it's a setup.
Well, I'd say that the participants also set themselves up. I mean, you're talking about it. You've got an addict and you've got a drug dealer, and there's no doubt that there's a dealer establishment, but the addict is also partly to blame for their own behavior.
Well, I agree to you. I mean, I agree to a certain extent, but that's like saying a 10-year-old who gets kidnapped, it's partly their fault. And it is true. They went in the front yard. They went down the street. They talked to strangers. They wanted to see the puppy dog.
Analogy. That's a terrible analogy. You know, we got real challenges ahead of us. The dollar is disintegrating. We know that. That's what's currently happening right now. The dollar is losing value. Like pretty much every day that the market is open is a day to sell more dollars. Gold is rising. Oil is rising. And it's not just the dollar that's weak. It's also the currencies in the United Kingdom, and it's also the other westernized nations, because none of these countries are really viable going concerns. We don't export anything. And we can't produce things.
Globalism did this to us. Tax incentives to move overseas.
I'm sorry?
I know, but we were set up. We were pushed into this. Big government did this.
Well, I think it's just it's kind of a cycle of how societies run.
I agree with you. How high is gold going to go?
Good question. It could absolutely go through the roof. I mean, it could go $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 an ounce. It's hard to say. The trend is up.
And what is it trending towards over 2,000? The next 12 months?
Hard to say.
This is an incredible interview. Damon Vickers. I'm going to try to twist his arm maybe 10, 15 of the next hour so we can take these calls. This guy, he's giving me a run for my money. He may be Beelzebub.